Welcome to the commentary track for The Half-Breed. I'd like to introduce Rob Byrne, who is the co-commentator. He is the president of the San Francisco Silent Film Festival and a noted film restorer.
Thanks, Tracy. And I'm here with Tracy Gossel, the founder of the Film Preservation Society and the author of the award-winning and highly acclaimed and highly recommended First King of Hollywood, The Life of Douglas Fairbanks.
Alas, it was award nominated. It didn't win. It was, yeah. Okay.
Should have been.
Well, my mother liked it. Okay. We are here to discuss this really remarkable film that was the 9th of 13 Triangle films that Douglas Fairbanks made. He was at Triangle Film Studios for only 18 months, his first film studio from mid-1915 till the end of 1916. And The Half-Breed is a rarely seen and really remarkable film for lots of reasons. One being that it was not a typical Fairbanks film, but we'll get into that in a bit. The print that we're looking at now comes from many different sources, because after Triangle went out of business, which it did not long after it lost D.W. Griffith and Douglas Fairbanks, the films were sold and went on to many other lives, including, in some instances, being cut down to 2 reel films with the plot entirely changed. Rob, tell us about all the different versions you had to work from to create this version of the film.
Well, when we started the restoration, we did a search for all known materials, which yielded a great deal and at the same time did not yield a whole lot. There were 2 main, or actually only 35 millimeter surviving elements. One is located in the Library of Congress, which was one of the later released versions from the S.A. Lynch Company. And that one was notable in that it was part of it was discovered as part of the infamous Dawson City find of 1978.
It was in the swimming pool for years.
It was a swimming pool, and Bill Morrison's just released a documentary on that entire cache of films that were discovered titled Frozen Time. So that was one of the sources. It was incomplete and heavily damaged. That's what happens when you're, buried in a swimming pool and sit frozen for almost 100 years.
Kids were lighting the little bits of film on fire as it would emerge from the concrete. Oh, wait, we have to interrupt this discussion to comment on Douglas's luscious bottom and note the tan line.
Yeah, this is a nice tan line.
Yeah, this is a guy who played tennis and did a lot of hiking. Shockingly, there was no controversy over that shot. You would think in 1916 everybody would be very upset, but he was portraying an Indian. And Indians in their bare-bottom breeches were something you saw in the movies then. And there was not, in all my research on the film, there wasn't a single letter or article or anybody who made the least bit of comment on that, what I would consider to be a delicious shot.
I think that was it. I think they were all too busy admiring it to complain about it.
I'd like to think. But this was shot, by the way, up in Calaveras County, California, up where the redwood forests were. And when we see those gorgeous shots of the hills and the mountains and the trees, we can give credit to Victor Fleming, who we know now is the director of Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz, but he was Doug's cameraman for virtually all of the triangles, not entirely all, but all after the first 1 or 2.
And I think that really shows through. I think for me, especially in some of the outdoor shots, the gorgeous shots of the hills here, mm-hmm. the opening shot of the Indian woman climbing the hill with a papoose on her back are simply just gorgeous in and of themselves.
Now you're about to see sort of an indictment of racism, which is very advanced for 1916, and one of the reasons why Fairbanks and Dwan were eager to make the film. Fairbanks, it's not known, but I discovered in research for my book, really was not because it was politically considered the charming thing to do, but fought against racism in his scripts. The scripts that Anita Luce would provide him in as early as his third film had terms, had the N-word and had the coons and just all kinds of, it went beyond casual racism to aggressive racism. And Fairbanks actively worked to remove all those references and to, as much as possible, change the casually racist depiction of anybody of color. And the fact that he is the hero of this film and is a quote-unquote half-breed itself speaks to his beliefs and that he was following it. Now, there are different intertitles. I see the little T, that triangle underneath where it says The Outcast. Can you tell us, Rob, where the intertitles came from for your various sources?
Right. So, sort of returning to the topic of the sources. So there was everything we had that survived was this film was released and re-released and retitled and re-released. So every version of the film that we discovered actually had different sets of intertitles. So the major print that we had from the Library of Congress had, in many cases, not in this case that we're looking at right now, what we considered to be the original Triangle title, say the Triangle logo and the proper typeface and the right language. This title you're looking at right now was actually a recreated title. We did not have this title, so it was part of the restoration, and we got the language from the script.
Look at how Chinese and blacks are welcome in this saloon.
I love this whole scene. This is, I think, probably the most diverse saloon scene I've ever seen in a Western film. You have African Americans, you have Chinese, you have European Americans, sort of all mingling as equals, all playing cards together, etc.
And the women are not just saloon girls; they're clearly there to sleep with the men.
That's true. I mean, they are. I was going to say the only people that aren't equal in the saloon are the saloon girls who are prostitutes, basically,
and the Native Americans,
clearly, and the Native Americans, exactly.
I agree. This is shot in natural daylight. It was a interior/exterior. So when it says Tri-Stone on the title,
right? So
tell me where that came from.
Well, we didn't, for titles that we didn't have, or we knew there was a title but not the proper title. The Cinematheque France has in their collection a title script from a re-release that was put out by Tri-Stone.
Okay.
So
in the 20s.
It is in the 20s, and that's where, when we didn't have original titles, we relied on the Tri-Stone script.
And even our earliest titles are from an S.A. Lynch print. Lynch re-released the triangles as early as 1917. So a 1916 triangle, Lynch bought the rights to, and within a year of its original release, released it nationally with different posters. He would take the same lobby cards and simply change the logo and put his name on them. He was infamous. He would firebomb theaters. He was the sort of gangster who people still talked about 50 years later. Look at this. Don't you love the fact that Dwan took that shot through the saloon mirror?
In reverse, right?
Yeah.
You actually have to really pay attention to realize that that's what's happening.
Yep.
When you realize you're seeing the back and front of them at the same time.
Yeah, and he does that. There's such a difference between seeing a film directed in 1916 by Alan Dwan versus, say, a Christy Cabinet. Oh, George Berenger. Let's talk about George. That's somebody that's largely forgotten today. He was 23 years old when he came in, and we'll talk about Sam DeGrasse in a little bit. He played Henry B. Walthall's brother, one of the brothers in The Birth of a Nation. got to die during the war. He was an Australian, but he was in films like The Big Parade, Broken Blossoms. Oh, this title, I have to stop and interrupt myself. Everybody assumes this brilliant title was written by Anita Loos, who did do the titles for the film. It wasn't. This is directly quoting Bret Hart. And it's such a wonderful way of depicting an anti-heroine. It speaks to the shallowness and frivolity, but oh my goodness, Jewel Carmen is very beautiful. George Berenger was one of the first folks in Hollywood who was gay but was not entirely closeted about it, even before William Haynes. He did have what was called the Lavender Marriage, where he married his next-door neighbor. That was just sort of to cover himself. There comes Jewel Carmen. She was only 19 years old when this film was made, and she was Doug's leading lady in Flirting with Fate, which had been filmed before this, and subsequent films, the triangle films that were made in New York after this, Manhattan Madness and American Aristocracy. And standards of beauty change absolutely over the years, but Jewel Carmen was considered to be a great beauty, and I think most people still think she is today. Look at that mean girl. Spreads her skirts so they can't sit next to her. All those little things that Dwan did. Look at that deep focus, too. You can see what's going on in the street.
Yeah, that's an interesting shot. This whole sequence you get here in the church, and then when you go back to Douglas Fairbanks in the woods, and then his entry here, there's a whole sort of another story going on outside of the church that you get a glimpse of.
Yeah.
And this whole sequence is an interesting one from a restoration perspective because it combined all three of the sources that we ended up needing to rely on. This really nice bit you see right here, not this bit.
There's Dawson City going on.
So that's right. So this is a piece of the Dawson City print. This was the only source available for this shot. And it was so critical to have it first because we needed the shot, but also because
the fight in the
speaking
street.
of the backstory of what's happening out in the street is it was inexplicably missing from the other sources. So then we have another interesting juxtaposition here as we put materials together. This is from 35 millimeter source from the Tri-Stone film from Cinémathèque Française. And this now he transitions into a 16 millimeter print from courtesy of Lobster Films. Again, the only source of this shot was print, and it came together pretty well, even though the 16 millimeter obviously lower resolution.
Yeah, but you don't want to be missing those shots.
But no, you have to have it. It completes the film, and it completes this whole sequence of him leaving the forest and coming to the church, and what's happening outside the church, and then being pulled into the church.
Brought in. Yeah,
it's critical.
We never do hear the full text and see how it's being illustrated, but I think we get enough of the idea. Walking in behind Doug, the fellow with the mustache, that's Elmo Lincoln, screen's first Tarzan. We'll see him later. There, Mean Girl's got to move over. Jewel Carmen, people forget, but she was married to Roland West, and Thelma Todd, very famous screen comedian. There's a Griffithine title. Very passive tense. That's the way Griffith wrote him. What's Doug looking at Sam DeGrasse there? So Thelma Todd was having an affair with Roland West at the time of her death of carbon monoxide poisoning in a garage. Well, that was Jewel Carmen's garage. So you hear about Jewel in the 30s in books about or articles about Thelma Todd, but otherwise her career petered out. Now she's in the background. Look at how you've got both foreground and background action. The sheriff is one of our favorite Doug villains. That's Sam DeGrasse, and he was 41 at the time of that filming. This guy had been a dentist until as late as 1910. His brother was an actor. We don't know exactly when he started acting, but it was sometime after 1910. We would see him, I think his first appearance was in The Good Bad Man, which is the accompanying film on this set. But he was being used by Doug from the time he went into independent production. He was in Wild and Woolly, the second film he made, that's DeGrasse there on the left, right up through Robin Hood, probably his most famous appearance as Evil Prince John. Doug's other favorite villain was a man by the name of Frank Campeau, who had been on, what's the smile when you say that? The Virginian. He had been the villain in The Virginian. But Doug would also use Campeau as sort of the kindly uncle character. You never saw that with Sam DeGrasse. Sam DeGrasse, be it the Black Pirate, be it Robin Hood, he's always the bad guy. Here's Doug interested in plants, and here's Jewel pretending to be interested, as women so often do. Now, this fence scene has always intrigued me because Fairbanks is very atypical in this film. His arms are folded. He's an Indian. This is how he does an Indian. But we're about to do something a little bit athletic.
Very, very Doug-like.
Yeah,
that's
that leap.
There's
there
about 2 or 3 things that he in this whole film where you have
and because,
your typical expectations are so much more. Because
there was so little the Doug persona in this film, it really did flop. We hated kissing scenes. He would do anything once he had full control over his films to avoid being shown kissing the heroine on the screen. But because there was so little Doug, even though this film has got, to my mind, a very advanced and interesting indictment of racism, this film has got really nuanced and interesting female characters who aren't typical for their era. It's got everything that makes it ahead of its time and brilliantly executed for 1916. That's not what folks wanted to see. They wanted to see Doug being Doug. They wanted the smile, the teeth, the leaping, the optimism, and this character's not there. My recollection, when you gave a talk about your restoration of this film, the scene that's coming up where he has a conversation not here with the pastor but with the sheriff who is unknown to him to be his father, didn't that also come from different source material and you were able to make a lot more sense of the...
That's true. Actually, one thing about these different sources, and one thing that we were not able, the documentation doesn't exist to unravel completely, is that there are certain shots in the different sources that are the same sequences, but that are different takes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And 99% of the time, all the sources are the exact same take, is the exact same shot is the same take. But there are places where it's a different take and a little different action. And this sequence that will follow in a second, when the men are gathered and talking, and Fairbanks walks into the group. In one release, it's just sort of an angry and weirdly inappropriate thing, but with what was in the Library of Congress shot there really gave an irony and sort of an inside joke to Doug observing the racism and the ignorance of the group that he was in. And that was one where there was clearly like, okay, this is the preferable shot.
Yeah.
And then this must have been the alternate take or something that for some reason was used in some distributions.
Didn't you notice, I'm going to pause for a second and say, this is also atypical. blondes are supposed to be virtuous and, everything good. They're not supposed to be ambitious and greedy. And yet we see the ambition coming across her face. And he's talking her into giving up Hunky Doug and going for somebody who's either going to have money or power. Couldn't you tell that they were different takes because of the way the tail on his coonskin hat was blowing?
Right. I mean,
Was
you can
that
always
what-
tell the difference because people won't be positioned exactly the
Sure.
same and that sort of thing. But it was really obvious in some of these shots because that it was apparently windy, so that tail on Doug's hat was flying all over the place.
Okay.
In one place, it actually blows in front of his face. So it's like, okay, it was pretty obvious that it was.
So you put in the take where it didn't blow in front of his face.
Well, we put in the one that matched everything
What
else,
was
right?
going on.
The sequence that went with. But clearly, that's not one they would have selected.
Yeah.
That would have been a second choice.
I wish I knew what the title was here. There were all kinds of white men, and then where there was that skip. I think he had a retort, and we'll
But
never know what it was.
Right, but even then, I think
Yeah.
it conveys the thing. He says,
Yeah.
he's saying, well, there's all kinds of white
White
men, and
men.
he looks at you guys
Yeah.
and like you guys.
Now,
Is how I interpret that.
drunken and sottish. I love that word. This scene to me exemplifies what could be argued were his deficits as an actor. He did not feel that he was so much a strong actor as he was a personality. So when it's time to emote, he turns away from the camera. And you'll see him do this a lot in the early films. But by gosh, when you get to something later like The Gaucho, he's there, and he's there all the way. This shot also, in the two-reel cut-down, there was in the mid-20s, two-reel cut-down of this film where they actually changed who he ended up with. The plot had nothing to do with racism. It had everything to do with just, his natural world and how he wanted to be in the natural world. And so he wasn't reacting in that scene to the racism. He was reacting to the loss of the wilderness. So people could, by just changing the titles, change the meaning. Now we have two new actors coming in, and we'll talk about Alma Rubens at length, but just now we've got the fellow on the banjo is Tom Wilson. Oh,
Did you notice she stepped out of the wagon? Now
yeah,
she's
she
back
got
in
down
it?
on the wagon, now she's back up. Was that the way it was in the original cut you had? Or
It
was
was.
it
It
different
was.
source?
I
Oh,
assume
okay.
it's an original continuity
Yep.
error that they wanted the close up and
Yep.
and then
They just
wanted
missed
the
it.
long shot.
Well, D.W. Griffith was infamous for continuity errors. Not that Dwan was anything to do that. Tom Wilson.
Now she gets out of it again.
Yeah, there we go. Tom Wilson, if I always think of Ward Bond as the archetypical character actor, and Snitz Edwards was the Ward Bond of the 20s. Tom Wilson was the Snitz Edwards of the teens. He had 293 credits, and if you have a sharp eye, you'd recognize him. He is policeman in The Kid. He's a cop in Dog's Life. He is in Battling Butler. He was a trainer. You'll see him in Birth of a Nation and Amarillo of Clothesline Alley. I mean, he's just everywhere. It's fun to see him. It's fun to recognize him. Once you kind of get an eye for Tom Wilson, you never stop seeing him. But Alma Rubens, here comes Doug. He's feeling a little glum, but Alma's going to come talk to him. Alma Rubens is this gorgeous 19-year-old. This was her second film with Fairbanks, and a little bit of irony here that she's peddling medicine because while she's bright-eyed and has a great future ahead of her, in less than 10 years, she is going to just be a roaring, ravaged drug addict, and she dies before 34. Her autobiography was, she called herself a snowbird, and it was just one of the early terrible wastes in Hollywood. Look at that gorgeous backlighting. That's, again, filmed outside. Even the interiors were filmed generally in daylight.
And this is one of those nice shots. This film is filled with nice shots, but that's one right there. You really get sort of, first of all, it draws you into the location, but it's also meanwhile over here, and it's also outside looking in. It sort of gives you all these things at the same time.
Yeah, Doug is outside looking in
Exactly,
for much of this
exactly.
movie. Yeah, good observation. And Dwan would film things. You'll hear me talk about that when we do Good Bad Man. Oh, let me pause here. Belle the Blonde, Winifred Westover. That title was originally found in the saloon introduction scene, but the shot of Winifred was missing. So every print we had, it would say Belle the Blonde, and then it would cut to the drunk.
The drunk guy.
So
it was,
this is the
it was very confusing.
Yeah, this is the one instance where we moved the title, or you moved the title. Isn't it remarkable that there's just no hiding the fact that those two are going into
I think they're going to go...
Yeah, they're going to go engage in prostitution.
Exactly.
And Belle the Blonde, Winifred Westover, she's still 16 years old when she's playing this young prostitute. And she's, in a few years, going to marry William S. Hart, appear in films with him, and marry him and be the mother of his only child. So, oh my. Look at the lighting.
There are so many shots in this film and also of you get light from within shining without. You get the exterior scenes in this film. You get them also in Good Bad Man, which is also in this on this DVD.
This set, yeah, it's and that's not easy to do. That's
Especially not with film stock of them
yeah,
those days.
Yeah. People were trying to do what was called Belasco lighting. On the stage, David Belasco would have these very natural light sources, and people would be lit by fireplaces and things. And everybody was shooting for Belasco lighting. But there was a whole nother line of producers. I'm Cecil B. DeMille. I'm looking at you. They just wanted everything lit. I called it furniture lighting, so they could see all the furniture that they'd paid for in the place. And by the time we get up to the early 20s and Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and where cameramen are trying to reproduce Rembrandt lighting, and Kevin Brownlow discusses this brilliantly, of course, in all of his documentaries and books. You look at this tavern scene versus the tavern scene in Reggie Mixes In. It's just a richer experience. There's so much more to see what's going on. There's Alma saving Doug from getting a gun fired at his feet and being forced to dance. Maybe this is a time to mention Donald Soson's brilliant score.
Oh, yeah. Brings it to life.
He does. He's just one of the, we're in the saloon. We're here. We're back to that tinkling music, but he follows the emotion of what's happening. And now, what was the source material? And this almost looks like 8mm.
Oh, it's not quite. It's 16mm, but it was not in the world's greatest condition. Now, this is an interesting sequence, and it sort of presented some problems to us because it was a re-release, re-edited, etc. We wanted the shots, but the titles that were in it were clearly not original language.
Yeah.
And
we had
so
no
we couldn't
other
use
source.
those, and we didn't want to just invent something to go in. So basically, and there were no script titles to fill it in. So there were places where dialogue would naturally be.
And where it was in the
where
reissue,
it would have been originally, but we didn't want to, from simply a restoration ethics perspective, just invent language for it. So we just left it because the meaning is so clear anyway. It really, you're not missing anything.
Was this from the 2-reel cut down, or was this from Serge Bromberg's
This is
Lobster?
from Serge Bromberg's print from Lobster Films. Actually, at the end of the day, there were only 3 sources that we were used.
Okay.
So the Lobster Films, the 35mm Tri-Stone re-release for Cinémathèque Française, and the S.A. Lynch film.
Library of Congress.
Library of Congress print from the Dawson
and
City
mostly
Fund.
from the Dawson City, we use the titles because we had, see, right there where he's saying, I could have handled that myself. I didn't
Right.
need your
And
help.
clearly it was something
Yeah,
to
it's
that
like,
effect,
you
right?
big dumb
you
jerk.
didn't need to.
But-
You didn't need to jump
But
in
we'll
here,
have to just, for the sake of purity.
Right.
Oh, look at this. We've been sleeping with this guy all night.
quite clearly.
We could get into the whole discussion of censorship in films, but there are, from print to print, there will be parts of shots missing because local censors
Of
would
course,
snip
there
them
might,
out.
might not have, the people in Boston might not have seen Doug's butt. You don't
Yeah,
know.
well, no, they saw Doug's butt. Every print you had
Everybody saw-
Doug's butt.
that's
Yeah,
right.
come on.
Well,
We're not
but-
going to, that's beauty.
But there's the prints we don't have.
That's art. It's right. But for example, I once saw when Tolerable David, which I had had on Super 8, finally came out on, I think it was Laserdisc. Dang, it killed me. There was a shot missing of Ernest Torrance breaking the brother's back and neck where he jumped on him and broke it. As somebody somewhere, he actually looks pleased to be stabbed.
It's a sign of love.
He's a knife goes in. There goes Alma. Along with the extra features will be some stills, and one is of the entire cast and crew, including Doug's mom, who jumped off the cliff, all gathered around in the downtown set. And Alan Dwan is there. He had claimed that, oh lordy, I forget what Western hero, not Wyatt Earp, somebody had been an extra in this.
Oh, it's Wyatt Earp.
It was Wyatt Earp? Okay.
That's what. Now during the restoration, I was contacted by somebody that was a Wyatt Earp expert,
Yeah.
and they did all these things, and I gave them materials. They went frame by frame.
Can't find him.
You can't. Nobody could. These experts cannot identify him. But I do see that somebody has updated IMDb that says he's in the cast.
Well,
but I think
yeah,
that's not to be believed.
It's I would not, in my book, I originally did not claim one way or the other whether Doug was in Intolerance. And God bless Serge Bromberg, he found a shot. I've looked at that film 25 times. Most recently, I looked at every frame trying to find a lion because there was supposedly a lion on the Triangle set, blah, blah, blah. By the way, there's no lion in Intolerance, but there was one in a DeWolf Hopper comedy. But anyway, there was Doug with a monkey on his shoulder, and once you see it, you can't miss it. He's got this funny beard, he's got a helmet over his eyes, but it absolutely is Doug. And not once did I recognize that as Fairbanks. So kudos to Serge Bromberg. So who knows? Wyatt Earp is probably
in there.
right in front of us, and we're missing it. There's Sam DeGrasse. Does anybody need dental work? No, but there's a scarf. Why are heroines always doing dumb things like that?
They're just not used to being sneaky, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just...
Or evil or something.
Let's go into the building with a chainsaw killer.
Yeah, exactly.
You can just see these gorgeous redwood trees. Was it The Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, Mark Twain's first published work? That was the only way I knew about Calaveras County until I was researching this film. And when we get to Good Bad Man's commentary, Hugh Monroe Neely did some brilliant work on the locations, down to, okay, we're filming from this shoe store now, and here's this church. Here we don't have those kinds of specifics, but where's John Bankston when you need him?
Somebody needs to go out and find. Now, this is the tree that he was in.
Yeah,
and
this
is
is
the tree she sat on. Because
right.
I would bet anything those trees are all still there.
Now, wasn't that knife missing in one of the sources?
Yes.
The grabbing for that was a which would make this a lot harder to understand. But some censor didn't want that knife showing. Look at that gorgeous.
Yeah, all this photography in the redwoods, they really do. The textures and the depth.
Yeah, and the backlighting.
Really gorgeous. Yes, there you go again, right there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
it's everybody thinks of backlighting as coming from Charles Rosher. Of course, it was much earlier with Billy Bitzer using the reflectors back in 1910 with the Griffith Biographs and Mary Pickford. And one magic day, I was screening. Whoop! There's Doug Cotter. The 1910 biographs at Pordenone, and you look for it, And there was the day where suddenly half the shots, everybody's face is in shadow, and the other half of the shots, suddenly you could see their faces and the hair was backlit, and you could tell which shots were taken before lunch and which were after. Oh, this keep away scene reminds me of another area of expertise you have, which is glass slides,
Yes.
coming attraction slides. Was it not you who found the slide for this film?
No, I think it was you, wasn't
Well,
it?
I bought it, but I thought you found it on eBay.
No. I thought you full marks to you on that. This image
we go.
right there,
That shot,
that
yeah.
shot of him sticking his head out of the tree is the last slide advertisement
You know,
from Triangle for this film.
of all of Doug's triangles, this one for years, that bar across the shot, that's just,
It's a printed in frame line from when the film was duplicated
Back in the day.
whenever.
Yeah.
So it's one
You
of
have to
those
leave
things
it.
that's basically impossible to
Yeah.
get rid of.
no, well, it's a
least
historical
elegantly.
artifact. It's
It is. It's part
It's
of
like
the film.
Thomas Jefferson's thumbprint on the Declaration of
In a
Independence. That's
way
what
it
we'll call
is.
it. Oh, Doug's butt again.
There
I'm
we
sorry.
go.
I'm
Covered with
focusing on-
buckskin, but
yeah,
still
it's
to be
okay.
admired
We can all
nonetheless.
imagine. Yeah, it's. But this is the only other kind of playful sequence. That and where he grabs the trees.
That's right. It's about the only other time he smiles.
Here he comes. This shot will then be replicated backwards later in the film.
And the only trick shot in the
Yeah,
film.
the only
I
trick
think.
shot of the film. But it's very, very, very hard to find material on this film. There are no lobby cards, thus that I know of, that have survived. But very recently, within the last year or two, a discovery was made of a auto repair shop that had been a movie theater until 1916, 1917. And they converted it to an auto repair shop. They stuffed the posters, including material for Theda Bara film, some of the Fairbanks triangles, in the walls and the ceilings as insulation. And they were found, and a pristine 6-sheet for The Half-Breed
Wow.
was recovered. And it, Doug looks grumpy on it. What can I tell you?
Need a big wall to put that one on, huh?
Yeah, I have it. It's
Of
course
I have no doubt in my mind.
Yes. This was an image from one of the reissue lobby cards, but we just don't know what. Because the film was unsuccessful when they reissued it, one of the one-sheet posters was an image from Manhattan Madness, Doug wearing a cowboy hat and pointing his guns at the
Camera.
at the camera, at
Yeah.
the viewer. And here we have a little bit of sexual cynicism here.
I love the way this thing unfolds because it tells you actually a lot about both characters.
Yes.
I mean, it tells you both it gives you an insight into her past and her expectations.
Yeah. And
You
he
know,
looks
how
so
she's
darned
been
innocent.
treated before,
Yeah.
and also obviously reveals his golden character.
Right. Or just plum innocence.
Well, first, it was the first cluelessness, and then and he stays clueless. He don't think he really.
Yeah, he's like, well,
It doesn't really. Well, I was going outside.
I love the fact that she starts undressing.
Yeah, I know. She
It's
rips
like,
she rips her own dress open.
It's what I expected. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm
And he's like, okay, I'll be outside if you need me.
Yep.
But again, very
Frank.
frank for 1916,
Absolutely.
and yet not Game of Thrones explicit. It's implied, and it's enough. It's what we need.
Yep.
It's I think it's wonderful. Also, she's a sensitive performer. I mean, she's
very expressive.
Yeah.
I mean, without overacting. I mean, you get the emotion in her eyes.
the Burnham girls. There's Doug being an Indian again. Fold those arms. That's how
Could
we're
be
an
carved
Indian.
out of wood at that point.
Yeah,
I
a little bit.
think.
Yeah, that's it. And the it's again, I think why they changed the advertising material for the reissues, and they renamed it too. One version was, I don't think it was in the Carquinez Woods. It was,
There is one like that. I've seen an advertisement for that. In fact, you were speaking for lobby cards. I have seen the images for a couple of lobby cards for the film called The Flames of 49.
That's it, The Flames of 49.
And there was one of the key, not a key to the restoration, but it was helpful in the restoration. It had some of those shots that we didn't have. There were the 16 millimeter that we were talking about earlier with the Indians and the fighting outside the house, were shots that were used in those lobby cards for The Flames of 49.
That's great. Here we have the hospital scene. There's Elmo Lincoln standing behind Tom Wilson. And Elmo is all of 27 years old there. Doesn't know he's about to be the screen's first Tarzan. But he had a barrel chest like you would not believe.
It was a good pairing, him in a lion skin.
Loin skin or lion skin?
Whatever.
This sequence also I thought was remarkable because it wasn't just that you had different takes for this, but you had shots that were, mid to close-ups in one version, and in another version you would have a group shot like this.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one that was, it was filmed more than once, and it was, you had a medium camera and one that's more close-up. You're sort of medium here, right? You're getting it from the waist up.
Yeah.
But then the other alternate shots were basically from the chest up. They weren't super close-ups, but they weren't incredibly tight, but you were much closer to the scene, especially when Jack Brees runs in with the news that is about to be revealed.
Don't be a spoiler alert.
Oh no.
Fairbanks really paid very close attention to the toll, what the earnings were of all of his plays. He would sort of hang around the ticket office and see whether they were doing well or not doing well. And of his films, it was something he paid close attention to. He was more of a businessman than a lot of movie stars were, or that he necessarily gets credit for. He had made, shortly before this, a little light comedy called Reggie Mixes In. The script plus the story rights were $500, whereas for this, just to get the story rights for Bret Hart's story, they paid $1,000. Reggie cost, I don't know, maybe $13,000 total. This film was over $22,000, and yet it failed when they had great hopes for this, and frankly, he didn't think much of Reggie Mixes In. In retrospect, it's charming, but he wrote later that, I'm quoting him here, "We were beginning to get an idea as to what the public wanted to see me in. And after The Half-Breed, he never deviated from the formula again." Nice shot of Jack Brace there, George Behringer. He was either in sort of Ruritanian romances, he was in screwball comedies, he was in westerns, but he would always stick to the formula that the Doug personality was the center of the film, and that it was built around that. He never made a film really that dealt with such subtlety or nuance again until perhaps the Gaucho. Ooh, there's a lovely shot, isn't it?
That is a nice one.
Yeah.
That's cinematographer right there,
he's
folks.
and Dwan set up that placement, between the trees framed by those redwoods, and then Fleming doing the lighting from behind. And I think Doug and Dwan and Triangle need to be applauded for their effort, but also they need to be recognized for recognizing what didn't work and making, it's both show and business, and making the smarter business decision. And that gave him the freedom to go on and make other films from literary sources such as The Three Musketeers. But he always made sure it went with what his persona was.
Now, one thing that they don't really explain in the film, but having read the short story that it's based on, that Doug is an expert on native plants.
Yes.
And this is how he makes his money gathering exotic and medicinal plants that he sells to people and that he ships off to the city.
As his foster father
As his
had
father
trained
fought him,
Yeah.
trained him to do. And
Yeah.
you see him, you have this title, you get money for these plants, and you
Yeah.
see him reading books and being educated, but you don't, actually, unless you've read the short story, you really don't understand what it's really all about.
And you see him save one of his foster father's books when early
right.
in the film when the people are throwing the stuff away and taking it. Now the film, while it was a failure, it got really, really glowing reviews. Photoplay wrote that it was up above the ordinary level of mere narrative, up beyond ordinary pictorial beauty, up in sheer daring of caption and situation. Boy, that's true. Up in the way it gets you. But word of mouth spread. People just didn't want to see
It wasn't the Doug they wanted.
a grumpy Doug, yeah.
And maybe if it hadn't been Doug, it would have been much more successful.
Possibly, or
I mean, just as a star
Yeah.
a star that had a different persona.
if it
with
had
the
been
expectation,
Thomas
because
Meehan or
it's
something.
because that's such an incredibly well-made film.
Yeah, maybe William S. Hart.
Yeah.
He could have. Now here you've got real sets, or not set, real buildings. The other setting was the classic movie street with the building at the end to make a T shape. Dusty roads. Maybe this is a time to discuss Doug's improper offer to Alma Rubens.
Do tell. Is there a story there?
Well, early on in the film, or in the shooting of the film, they were doing the exteriors in the woods, and so these sequences where they were sort of out on a camp, cabins in the woods, and she had said that when they were filming Reggie Mixes In, where she was not the heroine, she was the bad girl that Doug throws over for Bessie Love in that film. But she felt that Doug had been, there's 16 millimeter.
That's right. You can. It's good to have these shots, and these were some really nice ones here. But again, you can
see,
tell us bouncing back and forth between
you see
sources
what we've lost.
Because
no, you have to have it.
Yep.
She said that the company was quartered in shacks in a mountain resort. 2 a.m., she was under her blankets, afraid of the sound of what she thought were wolves or coyotes. So. And there was this tap at her window, and she quoted a husky whisper outside, "Alma, Alma, open the window and let me in." Of course, she wanted to know what he wanted to talk about at 2 a.m, and he said, "We've got to talk over the story." Whether she bought that or not, I don't know, but she opened up the sash, and he came in, and I love her description. He came in feet first. He held himself up on the top of the window, came in feet first, which you see him do in Marco Zorro and Reaching for the Moon. It was just his favorite way of coming in through a window. She said he wasted little time talking about the half-breed, offering me instead the opportunity to accompany him back to New York, where he was to play the lead in Manhattan Madness. He painted a glowing picture of my future in this event. Quote, 6 months in New York, he explained, and you'll be made. Your name will be in electric lights along Broadway. You'll have jewels, gowns, a Rolls Royce, everything. I'll make you the leading woman in every picture I play in. You'll be getting over 1,000 a week. You can almost hear Doug's voice, kind of trying to convince her of this. Now, why he's convincing her of this at 2 a.m, maybe there was a tit for tat he was hoping for. And I have to point out, this was Alma's last film with Doug, so perhaps she turned him down, but that makes me wonder about Jewel Carmen, because she was in She was in the next two films with Doug out in New York, so I suspect he may have appeared at her window as well. In 1916, he knew Mary Pickford. He was intrigued by Mary Pickford, but they had not yet declared their love for each other. So Doug was being a bit of a wolf. I won't say Harvey Weinstein. I will say but
Definitely not.
actors were. He was handsome. He was a star, and that was kind of the way the game was played even 100 years ago. There's 16 millimeter,
Yep.
but we need her because otherwise she would.
How would she get in the tree?
How would she be in the
otherwise?
tree? That's exactly right. Oh, there goes George Behringer. He'll find her eventually.
Yeah. It
And
takes him
this-
a long time to figure that
Is,
out.
is this from Surge's print?
It is,
The
yes, it is.
16. Okay. I think of your early restorations, this was probably the greatest patchwork job you had, didn't you? Compared to
Well,
What about
it was
the-
one of them.
I want to say the Polinegri
Yeah, it was the Polonaise, the Spanish dancer.
Spanish dancer. Was that from a lot of
It
different
did.
sources?
It was. We had 3 different sources, including 116 millimeter from Kevin Brownlow. It seems like 16 millimeter always comes to the rescue every once in a while.
that or 9 millimeter from
Yes,
the Brits.
exactly.
And
or some sort of small gauge reduction. Sometimes that's all that's left.
I spent my youth screening 8 millimeter because I couldn't afford 16.
Me
and
too.
Man, I thought Davenport, Iowa, the home of Blackhawk Films, had to have been the mecca of the universe.
It was the center of the universe.
That's where
for
all that
sure.
stuff was.
I think about it hard enough. I'm sure I can still remember their mailing address.
Oh,
Phelan,
the Easton Phelan Building,
There we go. I knew it.
Davenport, Iowa. I
Yep.
don't think it had a street,
General
did it? You
Street. I
just-
remember the Phelan.
Yeah,
the
Easton Phelan Building.
What's in it? Yeah.
There's our heroine has taken off her shoes, and he's still interested in plants. But
It's always the plants.
Yeah. Everybody's gone. Oh,
And he's still standing there trying to figure out
Yeah.
what's going on.
it just.
Meanwhile, they've had their whole conversation
Jack-
or whatever. He's carried her back and forth, and
Jack Brace, not the brightest bulb in the
not
chandelier.
The lightest,
The two-reel cut down is so odd because he ends up with the blonde and the brunette. Alma Rubens goes on to a happy life selling snake oil. They
It is. It's very interesting how
they flipped the story.
in the
Yeah.
different releases of this film. He goes one way or the other way.
And that was Winnick who cut them down and released them. And Fairbanks sued because he did not want to be associated.
Here's your trick shot.
Here's your trick shot.
And he does an amazing job of
He
obviously
does.
having done this
Yeah.
walking backwards
Where
and
it's-
everything.
yeah.
It still looks quite natural when played in reverse.
Brownlow shows Chaplin doing some brilliant backward
yes.
film in his mutuals.
I think the fireman, especially the one
Unknown
shot
Chaplin.
that he shows the axe at the foot.
Yep, exactly.
shot.
Where it looks like it just misses the foot, but that's where it
Over
starts.
and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Right.
I like this. He's slow on the uptake, but
Yeah.
he's starting to realize that he likes her.
He'll figure it out.
So Fairbanks sued because he wanted those cut downs not to be released. He didn't want to be associated with two-reelers. And ultimately he lost because he was not the producer of the films. He did not own the films. He was work for hire. He was an actor. And it was only this first 18 months of his career that he was an employed actor and not a producer. And what's astonishing to me is how much he learned in those first 18 months. Now this has got to be Dawson City, isn't it?
It is. And it's actually there is a decent amount of Dawson City material in it. But every once in a while, you get a shot that was just so ravaged.
Yeah.
A lot of times you was able to clean it up so it's fairly clean looking, but some of the shots are just,
Yeah.
the emulsion's gone, and then when it's gone, it's gone.
But you don't want to miss those shots.
Now, didn't
you said Doug was unsuccessful in suing.
Yeah.
I mean, Chaplin had the same thing, right?
Well, what
with
happened
SNA,
there is SNA
but he was also
reissued.
unsuccessful.
Yeah, they padded them and made them 2-reelers, 3-reelers.
Or created new ones like
Right.
Triple Trouble and
with material that he did not want
Right.
in his films. He felt were unsuccessful takes. And
But he was also unsuccessful
also
in
unsuccessful.
saying the same story. Yeah.
Yep. So he was better off being his own producer.
Right.
Now here, this was the sequence you said that there
Right.
were.
So the alternate takes they have them much closer.
Much closer.
Just you have. I'm holding my hands are like the people
That's right. You're framing.
can see my hands, but
Yeah.
it's framed much tighter from basically just below the shoulders.
Now
and
this
up.
is almost comic, where he pulls the guy's Sam DeGrasse's hands off his neck.
Yes. This is the man that was just stabbed and
Yeah.
could barely hold himself up. Now
Yeah,
he's
well-
now he's
I argue he has a tension pneumothorax. But,
okay. I don't know what that is, but it
that's
sounds
when
bad.
it is bad when you've been stabbed in the chest. If with every breath you take, air comes into that pleural space but doesn't go out, eventually you pinch off your inferior vena cava and you don't get blood returned to your heart and you die.
But wasn't he stabbed in the back?
He was, but that's between the
Oh.
ribs. See,
Oh,
that's
between
the
the
lungs.
ribs. I
The
was
lungs, they
thinking
live
the
there.
front. Got it.
So, of course, he probably
Okay.
would have died sooner, but for the purposes of the film,
Oh, well, he's got to keep walking for a little
Yeah,
while.
he's gotta go
Other-
for a bit.
You're going to miss the
Yeah.
big reveal,
Yeah.
and then
the
nothing will make sense.
the sympathetic depiction of Native Americans doesn't start with the half-breed. D.W. Griffith's biographs are almost universally, not entirely, sympathetic to Indians. And Helen Hunt Jackson wrote Ramona in 1884, and that was a book that was hugely popular, sort of the Gone with the Wind of its day. And Griffith made a version of it in 1910, and it was made again, I think, in 27 with Hugh Monroe Neely worked on the restoration with Dolores Del Rio.
All right.
And everybody knew Ramona, the way people later knew Scarlett O'Hara. And she was not Native American, but she marries Alessandro, who is, and they are treated very badly as being treated as Indians, and they're treated very sympathetically in the book and in the films, and you're actually rooting for them. So, as often as there were films like Birth of a Nation, there were also voices on the other side,
Right.
arguing against that kind of thinking. And again, 100 years and more ago, he's so happy. That he thinks Doug is having sex with just you. You're Mexican. That's
You,
fine.
I don't care
you're,
what you
you're kind
are.
of brown. It doesn't
You're-
count.
yes.
Yeah. If it was blonde Nellie, but see, okay, there's our ranking. You're
Yes.
higher ranked if you're a Mexican than if you are an Indian. I think that unfortunately in this world you were lower if you were black, and God knows where the Jews were, but it was pretty low down. And that's why Fairbanks just assiduously hid his entire life the fact that his father was Jewish. Now, his father was baptized and converted at the time of his first marriage, but that didn't count. He was Jewish. It was Jewish blood, and he was actively ashamed of it, which was not to his credit. He spent his whole life kind of pretending his father was John Fairbanks. I always wonder if the title should have gone there. It was a little jump.
Yeah.
But you put
Sometimes it's just a break in the
Yeah,
film.
sometimes
but
it's a break.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
quite obviously enough of a change is like, there was probably dialogue
Yeah,
there or something.
that's where the title was. You don't know,
Yeah.
but you have to leave the title where you found it, except again in the course
Where
of
you
Belle
have
the Blonde.
evidence that, evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, you have to leave it where you found it. It drives me nuts. And there he goes. Attention, pneumothorax. Finally got him. He's down for the count. And again, Donald Sosin's score, do 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 do, and it stops to imply. At the Burnhams, and this is all in the Bret Hart short story, The Burnham Girls, and it follows very faithfully the story, except the end. Bret Hart's story has a very unhappy ending, which implies, of course, the film is going to not be that tragic or as tragic. But in the end of Bret Hart's story, Lowe and
Teresa.
Teresa, I was about to say Maria, I got it
Yeah.
wrong, and the sheriff, they're all burned to crisp.
Oh.
Awful. Now look at this. There's our mean girl. See what she's doing? She's pretending to be a squaw.
Oh, I
The
never
way
picked
she-
that up. I've obviously
Yeah,
seen
the
that
way
scene
she's-
about 1 billion times.
She's
and
wrapping herself in that blanket and
I thought it was
holds
pretty-
herself that way,
Right.
and then laughs with the Burnham girls
girls,
over
yeah.
this. Yeah, aren't I a squaw? And of course, within the context of you've been smooching a half Indian, you're going to be a squaw. And then we come back to the underlying agenda.
All right.
And of course, what else was there for women in those days? You had to marry well. It took an extremely brave person to make it on their own. Now, look at this shot with the drunken Indians not paying good attention to their fire.
Well, more than not paying good attention, they run around with firebrands.
Yeah,
setting
that comes in a bit.
Intentionally setting woods on fire.
Spoiler alert.
Oh,
but
sorry. Well, they're about to do it, so there you
so
go.
You've seen this shot
I'm
a
not
thousand
sure
times.
why they...
Well, the extra materials that will be included with this film is a still that was taken on the when they were shooting that scene where they tied Doug up to the tree and they're all trying to scalp him.
Oh, that's great.
The extras who play the Indians, and Doug looks more cheerful in that shot than he does for the entire film, except maybe when he's hiding in the log. The New York Times said he was more like Peter Pan than not, hiding in that tree. That's a gorgeous shot. Now, I argue, although you couldn't do it, we had no evidence of the original tinting. I argue those night scenes with the firebrands would probably have been tinted red.
And the subsequent fires. I mean, I think
Yeah,
it
and the
clearly makes sense that
Yeah, and otherwise night scenes
the
would
night
have been
scenes
blue.
are blue. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
But-
so much that happens at night in this film.
But
And
unless
there's places that's ambiguous. It's like
Yeah.
it would help to be tinted blue. For instance, there's a light source. It must be night out.
but you don't know.
You don't know,
Or if
so.
it's an interior, it would have been kind of a golden color.
Right. But
So-
everything we found when we did see tinted, and it was always in
A reissue.
It was always
Yeah.
in a reissue. It was always 16 millimeter. It was always just universally amber colored.
Burn.
I'm sorry.
Douglas read the letter, and it's a form of burn.
Oh.
And now we have a literal burn.
There we go.
The Carquinez woods are on fire. Oh, before he drops his letter, jumps over the fence. But the reissues and non-roadshow prints were often all
amber.
And the original issues and road show prints would be carefully tinted and toned. I know the Pickford Foundation has a version of Little Princess where I think there were multiple versions of pink and multiple blues, and they're working on restoring, and it's going to be, look at how that tree caught fire. They had to work very carefully with these fire scenes with lots and lots of fire marshals, et cetera, nearby, so that they did not catch the real woods on fire, because you saw how dry some of those
Right.
trees were. They just
And there's some
lit
great
up.
choreography here. I mean, you'll take
Yeah.
two steps forward and something giant flaming thing will
Yeah.
fall in front or behind, or
And look at that backlighting. And Fairbanks' eyebrows were singed off.
I'm not surprised.
Filming this. When one point in The First King of Hollywood, I list his sundry broken bones and torn this and torn that, and he really did lose his eyebrows filming some of these fire scenes. Now, missing title here, she's telling him,
Right.
I don't know if she
Presumably.
tells him that he's your dad, but she certainly tells him the sheriff is in the woods. I think she tells him that
I
he's
think
dad.
you're right. Why else
Yeah.
would he have such urgency to
To go get that
go
son
get
of a
the guy
gun?
that
Yeah,
the evil guy that's
that was mean to him.
right? Let him burn.
Well, he's a hero. The 3-sheet for the reissue, Flames of 49, is a shot of him carrying Alma out of the woods. And oh my gosh, he looks like it's. I'll try and buy any Doug poster I possibly can, but his face was so distorted and so dreadful. He was unrecognizable.
I love this sequence. It's like, okay, he runs into the fire to get his
Get Alma,
father,
yeah.
and then she gets him and runs back into the fire. It's like, really? I
Oh,
I
let me
just
tell
ran in
you
there
though,
once.
whoa, I can speak as an emergency physician. With carbon monoxide poisoning, people get confused.
Okay,
I'm telling
that's
you,
it. There's a medical
I
reason
have.
for this.
There is a medical reason, and
see, just missed the falling tree.
children had closed themselves in closets instead of leaving the room.
Mm-hmm.
And die of the carbon monoxide poisoning. I've had to tell more than one family. Dreadful news. Sorry to be a buzzkill,
No.
but women do stupid things in the
I just
movies
thought
all the
it-
time. But in this case, there is a medical explanation.
Fair enough.
But not a trace of the half-breed. Now we see Nellie's true stripes.
Yeah, I don't like him anyway.
There's a word for this, but it's not used outside of a kennel.
We don't use it on commentary tracks.
No, of course not. Oh, you phony hypocrite. On the other hand, that is the expedient thing to say.
Yeah,
Now,
what else are you going to say?
tell me about where the different source material and
Well, this is an interesting one. So
gorgeous
this
shot.
shot right here was the last of the 35 millimeter
Uh-huh.
source, and it's sort of like the stoic end where she's at his feet,
clinging to him.
and then but the 16 millimeter print continued it,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave us a little bit of a more ambiguous ending. So this was not what this was only in the 16 millimeter, though the titles were in the script.
Yes,
So we had the
and
documentation what the titles were.
well, but the
we-
script was the script for the reissue,
Right.
not the original. Because
Correct.
I went to
but even the reissue print that we had
yeah,
didn't have this sequence
didn't
in
have
it.
that in.
Yeah.
But the titles for all of Doug's original triangles, the titles exist for all but 2 films. This one and The Good Bad
Oh,
Man.
the two.
The first 2
There's
we worked
irony
on
there
together on the
somewhere, yeah.
restoration. And by the way, more restorations are coming, folks. Rob since devoted a huge chunk of his life to restoring The Three Musketeers. We're currently working on Double Trouble. Yeah, there's that kind of hopeful but ambiguous
Yeah,
ending.
she walks away, but she starts to follow.
She's following
and then you
him.
Fade out.
I'll never leave you.
Yep.
and-
And why would she? So.
Oh,
And
God,
there we
no.
go.
There we go. There we go. Our first commentary. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think
It's
we'll
been a
just
pleasure.
Yeah, we'll let everybody listen to the music. Now they know a little something about everybody except Frank Brownlee. I forgot to talk about him, but you know what? He isn't the least bit interesting.
So, and you heard it here, folks.
But Donald Sosin, tremendously
Gorgeous,
talented,
really wonderful
yeah,
score.
fabulous music.
We're really fortunate to have him on this
And
film.
we owe our debt to Celine Rivo and Serge Bromberg and Mike Michon. Well, you can read all the
whole gang.
whole gang. It takes a world of people
It really does.
to save these things, and they're not. No one ever makes money restoring these films, so
No.
please don't throw this up on YouTube. Urge your friends to go out and buy a copy.
That's right.